I believe there is a sequence and a code to unlocking anything you want in your life. What's happening?
What's up? What's up?
Happy New Year. How's you're in paradise right now.
Yeah, man. Check out that backdrop, right? Pretty cool.
Yeah, that doesn't get old.
Nope. Took a nice stroll this morning. The golf course is across the street. Did a pretty cool Facebook Live this morning, right? About, obviously it's New Year's. Everyone's got these New Year's resolutions. But I was visiting Connecticut, visiting family, been there for a couple weeks. And man, I noticed a theme, right? People kind of have this seasonal depression. Some people super excited for 2023 because they're just excited. But then a lot of people excited for 2023 because 2022 really wasn't a year that delivered what they wanted, right? So I'm inspired by looking at palm trees, the beautiful, skyline, and a golf course. And I'm like, it made me reflect on Tony Robbins, the pyramid, right? On how to change your emotional state. He talks about your language patterns, your physiology, and what you focus on. But I said, man, what if there was a fourth element to that? What if it was your environment? Because I do believe your environment can immediately change your emotions.
100%.
So I did a really cool, 10, 15-minute Facebook Live about that today, right? Like, if you control what you're internally saying to yourself, plus what you're verbally expressing, that's your language. If you can control that, if you could recognize negative thought, because we all have it, right? It's about recognizing it and saying, oh man, caught myself. Let me rephrase that, rechange that. And then you change your physiology, stand up, smile, just change. And then what you focus on. But what if every once in a while you changed your environment to a place that inspired you? And it doesn't have to be getting on a plane and traveling. Going for a walk to a beach, going to your favorite spot, going for a hike. What if you encompass that fourth element to generate some inspiration so that changed what you focused on, change your physiology, and change the language in what you're saying to yourself? So it was a really good morning, man.
Man, I love that. And you're so spot on, right? Because environment and circumstance really dictates, especially a lot of our thinking. And then our thoughts, collectively over time become, new beliefs. And those beliefs drive how we feel. How we feel drives our behavior. And, our behavior over time forms habits. And then that dictates our results. So definitely a huge believer in that. I mean, it allows for creativity, especially when you're in kind of typically in an environment to where you're grinding, very tactical, executing, and then being able to get out of that environment and into a creative space. And I think Alex, I think it also helps reduce, stress levels as well. Right. So like even thinking about, for you, crazy with kids and family in Connecticut, for several weeks. And, just being around a lot of people and kids and trying to juggle work and holidays, I mean, just naturally our stress levels will go up. Just even like your walk on the beach this morning and just in that environment, I mean, just how that kind of probably just melted those stress levels away for you.
Yeah, for sure, man, because it changes what you're focused on, right? You can't help but have a little bit higher level of gratitude when you're surrounded by this type of environment. So for sure, man. And listen, yeah, we're all stressed out, right? There's no doubt that any one of us could immediately flip the switch to focus on what's not working in our life, some of those stresses, and immediately go into a dark place. There's no doubt about that, right? We're all human. So what I talked about today is, but are you equipped with the proper tools to snap out of it?
That's right.
And we talked about one of the things I do is I actually write out my gratitude list and my wins. And I'm not talking significant wins. Every minor win is a win. And then I laminated those. So, if you go into my office, there's a laminated copy of my gratitudes and my affirmations and then my goals. I laminated that, and I also put another copy in my nightstand. I put it on in my bathroom, right on my side. So if I'm brushing my teeth, it's there. And I have it in my vehicles in my sun visor. So I surrounded myself, because you never know when something's going to go wrong. You're going to have that phone call that derails your day. So I surrounded myself by literally having it in all of my environments. And then I talked a little bit today about the practice of not just reading it in the morning, because if you can start your day on a positive focus, but then I talked about at nighttime, reading it one more time at night, making it the last thing you read, because then your subconscious, if you've ever studied the conscious and the subconscious, your subconscious mind can't really determine, fact from fiction, what's real, what's fake. So by making that the thing you read, and then getting your 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep, letting that just work through your body at a subconscious level is really empowering. And, and it's, can you do that habitually every day, morning to night, for the next 30, 60, 90 days? And I promise you, if you do it, life changes. All of a sudden, this is how you know life changes. You're struggling in your business, and all of a sudden you get a referral deal.
Yeah.
It's like, where did that come from?
Right.
Because you stopped focusing on the negative, because you've changed your emotional state by constantly focusing on what's good and what's right. Shit starts to kind of flow to you. And, that's a little bit woo-woo kind of out there. But unless you've experienced it and you've practiced it, you don't really know. But here's what I can tell you. If all you do is focus on what's wrong and what's negative, that shit just compounds and piles up. And it's hard to get out of it.
Yeah. I mean, you'll find it, right? What you search for, what you think about is what you'll see. So if you're constantly thinking about, the downfalls and the problems, then that's all you'll ever see. Right. I know talking about Tony Robbins, and, he has that, it's the story that he tells about, on the NASCAR track that, set into a tailspin. You got to look down where you want to go. But if you start to look at the wall, then you'll end up in the wall. And that's just a great reminder of kind of what you're talking about. And, programming yourself to look in the unconscious and conscious of where it is we want to go. And, another little gangster, tip. I love how you have those everywhere, but also, put it on your phone, put it on your device. I mean, it's something that statistically we look at 85 to 400 times a day. Why not, if you're going to look at something 100 to 150, 200 times a day, why not look at something that's going to be beneficial and powerful for you? So being able to have that there, you were talking about, just kind of from struggles. Have you seen the Jonah Hill's, his therapist documentary on Netflix?
I've not, no.
It's Stutz, Stutz. And it's Jonah Hill's therapist. And so they did kind of a documentary on it. I've only watched about half of it, but in the beginning, what he talks about is that no matter what, when you feel like you don't have any control over anything, you do have control over what he calls your life force, which are 3 things, which is, one is your body. So you have control over working out, going for a walk, what you eat, sleep. And he says, 85% of our power of the life force comes from there. He said the other thing is that we have to connect with people. We have to connect with other human beings. And what he said is that you have to initiate it. You can never rely or say, well, why haven't they reached out to me? You have to be the one to initiate it. Even if you don't want to initiate it, and even if you don't want to be around people, you need to be around people. You need to be around that energy. And then the top of the life force, what he talks about is tapping into yourself. And kind of what you talked about there is it's that relationship with the unconscious. And he said the easiest way to get there is journaling. And so like, even for you, what you just shared, your gratitude practice and writing down the wins, that's a form of journaling. And so that allows you to tap into that allows you to tap into yourself, your life force, and your unconscious. And it's something, he said that, and I was like, damn, man, that's so true, right? Even when you feel you don't have a move, and, we've talked about this for years. The only time that you don't have a move is when you quit, right? When you give up. We always have a move. And even as simple as that right there, right? You have a move. You can get your ass up and you can go for a walk. You can get up. You can go to the gym. You can go for a run. You can do those things. You can control kind of what you're eating. You can make sure you're drinking enough water. You can make sure you're getting enough sleep. So it was just a really good reminder of what you're seeing, what you were saying. The other thing, Alex, that you were talking about, and you had kind of mentioned Tony Robbins, and I had a client recommend that I listen to Ed Milet's recap 2022 recap podcast of the highlights, and you triggered something what you said there from listening to that podcast, and it was Tony Robbins was one of the highlights on there. And what Tony was talking about, he said one of the greatest things as human beings, the concept that we created was the concept of seasons. And he said that changed everything for us as humans, in understanding that there is always a spring, there is always a summer, there was always a fall, and there always is a winter into our lives. And I was seasons of our business, seasons of our lives. And I went to watch the OU game with Kurtzinger. And, Kurtzinger's always been big on, hey, put in the work during this period of your life, because this period of your life will be X. And then this period of your life will be that. And what Tony was talking to Ed about on the podcast was, he said that, from 0 to like 21 or 22, for most people, that's the spring of their life, right? They're being poured into, the nutrition. Most of the time they're being taken care of, right? They're just living that part of their life. And then he said, from 21 to 41 is usually the summer, right, of our lives. He said, that's when we're fucking grinding, we're sweating it, we're putting in the work, we're doing the things. And then he said, 41 to 61, 62 is kind of the fall, right? That's kind of where you see the harvest of your life, and you're harvesting kind of what you sweat in the 20s, 30s, and into your early 40s. And then he said, 61 to 81 is kind of the winter. And he said that doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that, maybe you're not putting in as much effort, right? You're living off of everything that you harvest in your 40s and your 60s and all the work that you did. And then he said, 80 to 100, 102 is just that extra borrowed time, right? To where you get to live and give and do all the things that you really want to do. And it was really awesome hearing how he articulated that and broke that down. And it's just a reminder, right? We all go through it, right? No matter, all of our businesses have a season of our business. All of our lives have a season of our life. It's just a season, and it's going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to change. And I think so many people, and this, that they get so fixated on the now that they get stuck in that survival mode instead of thinking, hey, this is just a season. This is not forever, and being able to go through that. So I love, starting this conversation talking about those things to really realize that, we have the power to change the environment, which can change how we think and how we feel. I mean, immediately.
Yeah. Couple of things I want to unpack. So the analogy you used about NASCAR was the exact same one I used this morning, right? If your whole focus in life is don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall, you have just said hit the wall 6 times.
Right.
I don't know where I heard this, but it was very eye-opening to me. Somebody said a lot of times we focus incorrectly on, like, hey, listen, you don't want to hit the wall. But if you keep saying hit the wall, your subconscious says hit the wall. Versus saying, hey, stick my line, stick my line, stick my line, right? And the analogy they gave was like revolving around people who are in debt. Say, I want to get out of debt, out of debt, out of debt, out of debt. And they keep using the word debt. And that's why they get out of debt, but then they find themselves back into debt because they weren't aware that they keep triggering the wrong thing. Versus, never mind getting out of debt. How do I want to focus on savings, compounding my income. It's the same thing. You're going to pay off the debt, but we stop focusing on debt. And so same thing, hit the wall, hit the wall, hit the wall. You hit the wall. No, you want to stick your line in NASCAR. I've driven NASCAR a few times, and it's super fun, right? You're 165 miles an hour in this car, And the guy in the speaker is like, all right, man, you're coming into turn 4, stay low. He doesn't say don't hit the wall. He's like, stay low.
Right. Because
So
if he would have said that, you'd have damn sure looked at the wall.
my eyes for a split second, John, would have went from, because when you hit the curve, you're looking at the apex where you want to come out of, right? So my eyes are at the what they call the very bottom, the curtain of the verse. I would have went, and I would have looked up at the track, and I would have went like this, and that whole motion with the wheel would have drifted me right into the wall. So I love that. The other thing you mentioned, I'm Ed Milet. He actually, so I have both of his books. Very good listening to. He talks about when you do, everything we talked about, and you said put it on your phone. I would challenge people to do it on your phone in front of a mirror so it's you reciting it. And then watch yourself back. Watch yourself sharing. What are my dreams? What are my aspirations? What are my wins? What am I grateful for? And he's like, it's that visualization of you saying it back to yourself.
Yeah.
So that's a really good element that I think a lot of people miss out on when they do goal setting. So that's another little nugget people can take. And, it's weird. So I've not shared this with anybody. For some reason, I've had this thought in my mind. This is a very, very scary place up here.
It is very scary. Mike Tyson says? It's very scary and it's very lonely.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about my 2 kids, right? They're 2 and 4. And for some reason, man, I've had this crazy, what happens if I'm not here for them when they're teenagers or young adults? So I've had this by sharing this with you, it'll force me to do it. What if every day I just shared a thought, a learning? Because if nobody pours into my kids about their belief systems, their thoughts, how to challenge thoughts, that would be my biggest fear in life, is I don't get to share with them and shape how they think, the type of questions they ask themselves, challenge their belief systems. So I've had this weird thought, I'm not surrounded by immediate family who thinks the way that I do. I'm not saying that it's negative, but there's a lot I want to pour into my kids. So what if I just shared with them my daily life lessons and put it on video? So God forbid something ever happened, they would have 30, 40, 60, 100, 1,000 of my life lessons that I've learned because I've invested into personal growth. And I left them something to, again, whether they're 15 or 55 or 75, they could turn it on. And it was me giving them the life lessons that I've learned, that I have distilled down to what you focus, what you say to yourself, change your physiology, change your environment, right? Those things that I've learned, that I've invested in. So that's one thing, man. I think that would be fucking incredible.
So think about this. I saw a post. No idea who the guy was, and he said, when my son was born, I set up an email account for him, and I send him the messages via email. And when he comes of age, and he's old enough to understand and understand the email and what I'm sending him, I'll give him access to the email, and he'll be able to have 18, 19, 20 years of my life lessons and how I felt over that time with him in his email. And as you were talking through, that's what I just wrote down is setting that up, even with Zane, just still 11. And, say he doesn't, get access until he's 18. I mean, that's still 7 years of just sending, gratitude and life lessons and ahas and just things to his email. And, when he gets to that point to where he can open it up and kind of go through them at his leisure, at his pace, and just how powerful that could be. Made me think of that. So that's really, really powerful.
Yeah. So what made me think about it is my parents bought 2 Audible books where you can record. So it's their voice reading the book to each one of my kids. So, of course, for Nash, it's Buzz Lightyear, right? So it's and they ask me to play the book, and they don't want me to read it. They want me to play with it. So each time you change the page, one page my mom read, one page my dad read, the final page they read together. And then I really love that. So I asked them to do one for Noah, and they did. So now they each have this book. And as I play it to them, I'm like, man, that's incredible, because one day my parents won't be here, but to hear their voice.
They'll
So I
always
said,
have.
how do I improve on that? What if they could hear my voice and see me? And that's why video was my one. And man, yeah, I don't know. I just think that would be super incredible to leave something back. You title it, with what the thought is of the day. So in 20 years, if your kids are going through something, they search by that title, because like you said, it could be hundreds, it could be thousands. And what if they were able to have that Rolodex of, hey, what would Dad do?
Mm. Yeah, it's so powerful. And, I know kind of hitting on kind of the heartstrings and the emotional side of things. However, this is so important to your personal foundation of your life, because it helps, emotionally, it helps, mentally, it helps kind of who you are at your core, because then that allows you to be the best version of you, which then carries over, right? Because of our belief that, the size of your business is in direct proportion to the size of your leadership capabilities. And so what are you doing to become the best version of you daily, right? It's not here or there. It's daily, right? These are daily disciplines. These are the daily practice. And so, what are we doing to be able to do that? And I would challenge, I spent between, the kind of that reset week between Christmas and New Year's, recalibrating my calendar. You already know how ridiculous it is. And I went through and I was like, man, what's missing? And what I noticed was missing is, I had morning routine, but I didn't have any details in the calendar. And so I went in and I put morning rituals, but then I went through and inside of it, to where you can type out all of the details and notes and everything inside of the calendar on that particular time block. I started putting all the details of what that perfect morning ritual would look like, right? From the moment you wake up to the gratitude practice to, drinking, whatever morning cocktail of salt and water and fresh water or Tito's or
Vodka
whatever,
lemonade.
or vodka lemonade, whatever works for you. The gratitude, but just as a reminder, right? Because we need to be reminded more than we need to be told. But I believe that if you're really wanting to take it to the level of like what you're talking about, like it's in the calendar and then the details are in the calendar. So like, even like, hey, I'm going to record a message, this afternoon for my kids. I'm going to do a video message, record it. It's in the calendar, right? Now you have no excuse. And so I remember listening to, I went to the last EXP sprint in Denver, and Glenn was talking about success habits. Of course, he's got to chime everything around success to stay consistent with the brand. And what he said was success habits. And he said, show me your calendar and I know what your habits are. And I was like, damn, that's so good, right? And so it's like, do I stick the line because I have the right habits in the calendar? And if I don't like it, or something that's in my calendar that's not aligned to my line, if I have something in my calendar that forces me to look at the wall, get that shit out of your calendar. Put the stuff in the calendar that helps you to stick the line. And I just think that's, just that level of detail. It goes like, this is all great what we're talking about, but where does it live, right? And it has to live in the calendar, and the details have to live in the calendar as well.
Yeah. So we just wrapped up 2023 goal setting and business planning. I did it with my team in December. I've done it with some of my clients since. And there's a page after we go through all the numbers, we go through all the goal setting, we go through all the pillars of business. There's a page that is a calendar. And this is great. Now you know what to do every single day, but that needs to be reflected in your calendar. So there's no question when you show up on a Monday morning, what do I do today? Because there's a lot of agents who show up and they're like, I don't have business. I don't know what to do next. I was like, yeah, it's because your calendar is not aligned.
Right.
So calendar is huge. And I, kind of like to what Glenn said, my quote was, show me your calendar, I'll predict your success.
100%.
Right? Because, and I see that with agents, they come out and they have all these goals and they have all these ideas and they have all these business pillars and things they want to do, but they've never taken time to put it in their calendar and break it down to, okay, And I said to him, when you come to me with your idea, so I make every one of my agents pick minimum of 4. Ideally, we want to get to 6, but 4 pillars of lead generation and marketing. So your business is built on at least a solid foundation. And then when they say, okay, hey, I got my 4, my key question is, you need to answer this question. I am successful if. And that if needs to be followed by something that can be tracked and measured. So I don't care if it's the number of transactions, market share, income goal. It needs to be trackable so we know whether we're on pace or off pace or if we've reached success. And once they've answered that question, I say, great. Now you've given me the strategy that we're focusing on. I want you to make it tactical. And every question is, okay, in order for me to fully implement this pillar of my business, what needs to be done? And they need to brain dump all of it. And then they need to prioritize that okay, but in order for me to do number 2, what has to happen? Okay, well, that now becomes the number 1, right? So I made them think through all of that. And now I say, now you take your priorities and your pillars and you bring those into your calendar and you tell me what days are you working on that?
Right.
So that we know whether we're getting to the finish line. And and that's the same for any business. I don't care if you're selling real estate, doing mortgages, selling cars. It don't matter. You need to get to that level of detail so you know it's Monday morning. What do I do today?
Yeah.
I think the guesswork out of it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. I mean, it's the intentionality of it, right? Being super intentional, knowing what you're going to do, and hey, I'm prospecting today. Great. Well, let me look at your calendar. Who are you prospecting to? It should be that level of detail inside the calendar of who's I'm working through the people, new opportunities that came in since I was last able to prospect. I'm working on, opportunities that have come in that I have not been able to connect with. I'm working on, people that are, ready to make a decision, right? If I had a gun against my head and get somebody under contract this week, this is who I'm following up with. And it just has to be that level of detail thought through in the calendar to be intentional. And it takes a little bit of time, right? It takes a little bit of planning time to be able to do that. So, yeah, I mean, I absolutely love that. What are you seeing? And the other thing too, like you had mentioned is the tracking, the goal versus actual. What are you having people, or what are you utilizing from a scoreboard standpoint? I know back in the day, we used to use the quad track. I mean, it's a great tool. I wish we had some way to support it, from a Google Docs standpoint. We just don't. But what are you utilizing or seeing that's working well from a scoreboard standpoint?
So inside of my CRM, we have the dialer built in, and we also have a mobile app. So whether you're prospecting from your desk or you're on the go, every call, text, and email is done from within the CRM. It's the only way to track it. Right. I tell my agents, listen, if you make a call from your cell phone, it don't count. I'm sorry, because I can't track it unless you're disciplined to go back later and add that in. But I'm doing it all through that. And I'll be honest with you, all I care about is how many conversations did you have today? That's it. I don't care about appointments. I don't care about showings. I don't care about contracts. Because I know if you have enough conversations, that'll lead to an appointment. The more appointments you have, that'll lead to more clients. The more clients you have, the more closings you'll have, right? Those are all lagging indicators. The only thing you can control is how much time you put into making contact. So when I did their income goals, I made them basically, I made them really do the math in detail. Listen, I know what your closing goal is, but here's the truth. Not all of your clients close. So what is your clients taken to clients close ratio? Okay. Now listen, not everybody you meet is going to become a client. So what is your appointments met to clients taken ratio? So I made them break this down to eventually come back to, I need this many total appointments. Okay. What's your conversation to goal to appointment ratio? And I'll give you a couple of metrics. If you're a badass agent and you got a ton of past clients, sphere of influence, in a database, you might be like a 15 to 25 to 1. So for every 15 to 25 conversations, that's a sale. If you're an average agent, you're probably going to be somewhere about 35 to 45, 50 to 1. If you're a brand new agent and you're just learning the business, you could be a 55, 65, 70 to 1 because you haven't built that skill yet. So I made them rate themselves and then do that. And then we had a conversation for the year goal. Then I said, great, I don't expect you to work 52 weeks out of this year.
Right.
Let's everybody take 4 weeks off. And I don't expect you to work 7 days a week. Let's everybody work 5 days. So that gave me the total working days for the year, divided that by the total conversation goal. Now I had a conversations per day goal. So it's a Monday morning, you need 6 conversations. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's 6 hours of prospecting, an hour of prospecting. I don't care if it's at a Starbucks with your name badge, a grocery shop, and somebody says, hey, how's the market? If you have a 2-way conversation about real estate, that counts as a conversation. Let's mark it down. And now you know what you have to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Takes the guesswork out of real estate.
I love it. And it's so spot on because that it's the whole thing doing what's in your control, right? Like you said, hey, I'm having 2 appointments today. That's not within your control. Hey, I'm taking a listing today. That's not within your control. Hey, I'm having a closing today. That's not within your control. All of those things can change. All of those things can move. All of those things can fall apart. But what is within your control is the activities and the effort to be able to have the conversations. And like you said, based upon your skill, and lead source will determine how many conversations you need to be able to actually get face to face with another human. And everything you do, and I'm so glad you said that because everything you do has to lead to a conversation, right? Like, oh, hey, I'm working on this funnel. I'm working on this webinar. I'm working on this branding. Great. Is that going to get you a conversation? And that's just kind of has to be your thinking of what you're doing. And the days of click and buy, and especially in this business, ain't nobody clicking and buying anything. And so whatever they're clicking on or whatever they're consuming or whatever you're putting in front of them has to lead to a conversation. It just has to.
Yeah, you talked about effort. So there's 2 metrics. I go back to the days when we had our ISA team, right? So we've got 10, 11 ISAs. And, every day I'm managing these ISAs and we had goals of how many dials they have to make. We had goals for how many appointments they had to set. We had goals for how many nurtures they need to get. And I said, listen, the only thing in your control is the effort in which you put in.
Yeah.
If you hit the effort, which was the number of dials,
right?
If you hit that effort, everything else after that is a skill. And that's on me as the leader.
Yeah.
If you hit your 500 dials and you didn't hit your nurture and appointment goal, it's my job to go listen to all the conversations you had and help you improve your skill. And here's the cool thing. Skills can be improved. Effort is personal, whether you do it or not.
Right. Yeah. In Goggins' book, he says it a couple times and I've got it written down. I look at it kind of on my, what we're doing for the week, kind of the weekly, kind of planner. And effort doesn't require talent. And, and what he talks about is that people try to rely on their talent, and some people's talent peaks, in middle school or high school. And so they try to live off of that same level of talent, and it doesn't get them where they want to be. And he's just like, man, effort doesn't require talent. You don't have to be talented to put in the effort. So just put in the damn effort is the whole point. So it's
and I love what he talks about too, right? As far as motivation, like a lot of people use the word motivation. Like, I'm motivated to be successful. Yeah, well, motivation wanes. Motivation goes away. Right. Are you driven? Are you truly driven? Is there a deep reason pushing you? Because what are you going to do when your motivation ain't there? Like, there's a lot of people who, they wake up at 4:30 every morning. They're not motivated to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. A lot of people who work out every day, they're not really motivated, right? They're driven. That motivation has gone out the window. You party hard on New Year's Eve and the next day is a gym day. You ain't motivated to wake up and go to the gym when you're hungover. But if you're driven, you'll be there and you do it anyway.
That's right. And, Ed, speaking of Ed, he talks about, he believes that driven is also driven around another human. And, what Ed Ed always, leans towards the positive side of things. And it's usually, driven to make somebody proud. I believe you've got to have that. I believe that we're always trying to make somebody proud, but I also believe you've got to have a little bit of fuel. You got to have a little bit of ignition, and you got to have, trying to prove somebody wrong. And, that's Goggins, right? I mean, that's how he taps into his drive, right? Is proving all the haters wrong, proving all the people that, kind of one-upped him. And even, he shares in the book, right? Where he ran a race and was, crippled during the race, and his running partner, just kind of was like, "Hey, come on. It was like, leaving him and really like, "Oh, this is fun. This is easy." And then, comes back around the next year and takes her soul because he had that chip on his shoulder that, is like, I got you. I'm going to show you. And, I think it's good to be able to tap into that at times to keep that drive and keep us pushing.
Yeah, that's actually his girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
He was in such pain that first year. She was smoking his ass, and like he crushed that leg of the race the following year.
Yeah.
And she had no clue. She's like, "This shit feels so much harder than it was," and he's laughing because he's doing that shit intentionally on purpose. But you know what was crazy? You know what his motivator was her past boyfriends. He had distilled down that they were weak, and that was the reason she left them. And he's like, I wanted to leave no doubt in her mind. I ain't like those people. I ain't weak. It was crazy how he hung on to that. He hung on to that for a year, and he crushed her soul.
Yes, it's crazy.
And he loved
right?
every minute of it.
He did, man. And so, I mean, that's just a great example of kind of what we're talking about. Kind of looking at kind of the real estate side of things, and just kind of curious because I know you're such a student of the market, and you coming from small market now to one of the largest markets on the planet. Kind of what are you seeing or forecasting kind of moving into this year from a real estate side of things?
It's a great question, man. So I do study the market. I do believe in market fundamentals, supply and demand. I track interest rates. I track all that stuff. What's really unique about this is fundamentally, I look at it, we're at 3 months supply of inventory. Homes are still selling, but it feels different. It feels different. So here's what I would tell you is every real estate market is hyper local. You gotta know you're hyper local. So where I'm bullish on the market is in DFW, we still have a ton of people relocating to the area for well-paying jobs. They're coming here no matter what. So that's going to continue to keep our supply and demand as a seller favorited market. At the same time, buyers, the 110% of list price to sales price ratio is like 94% right now. So even though we are in a seller's market, you have to understand right now is a great time to have a buyer because you can get that buyer a hell of a deal. And if you're smart, use sellers' concessions to buy down the interest rate, do a 2-1 interest rate buy down. So for year one, let's say rates today are 6.5%, 7%. Let's say 7. You could buy it down to a 5. That's 2 percentage points. Let's say it's a $500,000 loan. That's a pretty significant monthly savings. You do that for the entire first year. Year 2, it's 1% cheaper. Year 3, it goes right back to what the normal rate was. But most people, and I would agree, interest rates are coming back down. So buy the house you want now, get a hell of a deal. If you think the market is going to drop 5%, offer 5% lower. Go get the house now. Refinance the rate later. Because what's going to happen is when rates go back down, all the buyers that are sitting on the fence are going to come back out to the market. And you're not going to be able to get 4 or 5% off of the listing price. You're going to be back to the 100% or even over, or a multiple offers market. So yeah, you get the teaser rate, but you end up overpaying for the house. I think people who are in great space right now are the people who are buying today, getting a deal and getting a lower interest rate with the ability to refinance out. The people who are stuck are the people who pay 20% over at a 3.5% interest rate, 3% interest rate. You can never refinance out of that rate.
Yeah, it's I'm with you, man, and it goes back to a couple things you said. It's obviously, always comes back down to the fundamentals of supply and demand, and then it comes back down to jobs. And for us in small town, it was easy to get a pulse on kind of what was going on with jobs. That's why we were so intertwined with the Chamber of Commerce, because the Economic Development Committee was inside of the chamber, and so that was kind of our rationale for being so plugged in to the chamber, not because of the chamber, but because of the relationships and the influencers, but also our connection to the Economic Development Committee. So we knew what was going on, what they were working with, who they were negotiating with, what jobs they were trying to bring in, who was doing what. We had our finger on that pulse. But for you in such a big market, in Connecticut, I mean, it's the same thing. It'd be easy for you to be able to figure out kind of what's going on. But in a big market, what is kind of a resource for you to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening from a job standpoint?
Yeah, I think everybody on here today needs to use Google Alerts, and you better have a Google alert for everything in your market: builders, jobs, economy. So every night I get probably 12 or 15 Google alerts, and then I just browse those articles. Google alerts. So the chamber, the economic development, understanding that is like finger to the pulse right now. Google alerts will tell you the longer form story, so you're educated about it. The Google alerts, a lot of those articles have become video content that I then put out into my market. So people think I'm the person of contact who knows what's going on. I'm just studying. So I would do that for everybody in the market. Look at what the local builders are doing, but Google alerts, Chamber of Commerce, your Economic Development Corporation, those are all going to be key moving forward. And if you're in one of those markets like Connecticut, where I was just there, and I drove around and I'm showing my kids some houses that I flipped back in the day, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, there's no real jobs here. Everybody is really tied to 2 or 3 companies. And then on the news that night, Sikorsky's Lockheed Martin loses like a $1.2 billion contract. They employ 7,500 people in Connecticut, and the average person is probably making over 6 figures who works there. If those people lose their job, they go from making $120,000 a year to $40,000 a year. That has a huge impact on that market. So you better understand what's coming. In 2008, when the market collapsed, I think the average person in Texas lost about 10% of their home value. The average person in Connecticut, I was selling a townhouse for $150,000. I bought that townhouse for $20,000. The foreclosure market decimated the market. The house that I bought, that I lived in before I relocated to Dallas, that person paid $330,000. I paid $110,000. So that market gets decimated. Why? Because it's not protected. There are no jobs. Dallas, man, there's literally, and the type of jobs. So there's another person moving into the Frisco station that's going to be bringing jobs from Chicago. They're all IT. Those jobs aren't going away. They're all well-paying. They're 6-figure plus jobs. So will Dallas be impacted if the market goes down? Yes. But if everybody else goes down 20, we might go down 6. You know what I mean? So, and that's still so strong because the average person has so much equity built into their home. The other thing, back in the last 2 years, all of those buyers, yeah, they paid top dollar for their home, but they sold a property that they sold for top dollar. I don't care what you paid. I care how much you finance. Because if you put down $400,000 of equity from the house you sold before that was overinflated, and you put it down on the new house that was overinflated, what is your basis? You took fake money, you put it down on the new, like, what is your basis? And if you don't go negative that, then your market is solid, right? The other thing is I was doing research about 2008, and people don't realize, do you know what killed the market in 2008? It was real estate and it was the mortgage. But the only reason the market goes down is when people are forced to sell. Because if the market is bad and you don't sell, you don't realize the negative loss. The reason that market sucked is people were forced to sell because they had adjustable rate mortgages. If all of those mortgages were locked in, they wouldn't have been forced to sell. Therefore, the inventory would have shrunk. right? Like there was at one point, I want to say there was 11 and a half months of inventory in Connecticut. You forget it, right? That's double a normal market. So they got crushed. But it's only those people who will be forced to sell, like in 2008, that created that domino of the market. That's not what we're in. So I'm pretty bullish. But do I think it could get worse before it gets better? Of course. I mean, you can't appreciate it at 22.5% per year. You can't have 47% appreciation in 2.5 years' time. That's unsustainable. People aren't making that kind of money. And now with the interest rates up, that's going to slow shit down dramatically. But when rates come back down, which they will, they absolutely will, because as inflation gets checked, rates will follow it back down. All those buyers come off the fence.
Yeah, they're ready to jump, and especially when you're already in a low supply, and then demand goes up. You know what happens, and so yeah, I'm with you. And I think too, we hear certain things, but I think it's getting back to kind of a normal. And you look at like DFW, for example. I mean, hey, foreclosures are on the rise. No shit, because typically in Dallas, what is it, 300 to 3,500 foreclosures at any given time? Well, over the last couple of years, it's been less than 100 a month at any given time.
Yeah. So let me speak on this, because this is really important. Yeah. This is a really shitty narrative by the media. Foreclosures are on the rise. They're up 150, 250%. No shit. There was a moratorium in place where you couldn't foreclose on anybody for 2 years. So when you compare any number to a zero, it's huge.
Right.
So you have to know how to, but you got to be that person that comes to the market. Hey guys, listen, and you got to use that clickbait headline. Foreclosures up 200%, because you got to get people to watch. But then you got to be the voice of reason. Hey, you may have saw this headline, foreclosures are up 200%. Let me put that in perspective. Many of you know there was a moratorium where nobody could be foreclosed on for the last 2 years. So yes, foreclosures are up 200%, but that is from a zero the previous 2 years. Let's look at it historically. There's and I'm just making numbers up. There's 10,000 foreclosures. And then this is where a Keeping Current Matters subscription for $20 or $25 a month everybody needs, because what they do is they give you the bar chart that says, yes, it's up 250%, 10,000 units. And then they show you what the trend has been for the last 20 years. And you're like, oh my God, 10,000 units is lower than it's ever been in history.
Ever. Right. Yeah.
But people don't care about that. They care about the clickbait. So use clickbait to get the attention, and then educate people and show them the facts.
100%. What are you pushing? You're talking about the agents and hey, foundation and 4 solid pillars and at least 4, let's get to 6 or 7. What are you seeing as, hey, you need to make sure that this is kind of a part of your mix, right? Like no matter what, hey, here's where the opportunities are. Like this needs to be part of no matter what you do. What are some of those key sources for folks listening in to be like, hey, Alex, I'm with you. Hey, I got 3. I know I need to get to 4. Hey, what do I got to do to get to 6 or 7 of those streams, of those pillars, of those oil wells, whatever you want to, call them. But what are some, like, man, these are the ones you need to be really paying attention to?
Yeah, great question. So, as I was going through this exercise with my team, I would look at their pillars. I'm like, okay, you want to do geographical farming. That's a 9 to 12 month ROI. Right. And I look at some of these pillars and they're like, oh, I want to do Facebook marketing or Google pay-per-click. I was like, great. That's a 6 to 18 month ROI. They had all these long-term pillars. I was like, you better implement some short-term cash flow pillars. And they're like, what's that? I was like, open houses. And they're like, I hate open houses. I was like, no, you hate traditional open houses. You've never learned how to speak to somebody who comes through an open house to convert that people. If somebody's driving through houses on a Sunday, actively looking, those are real buyers.
Right.
So you better have open houses in there. And I don't care if they're yours, somebody in your company, somebody not in your company. You need to be calling people and doing open houses every single day. I believe you'll get 1 client in every 2 open houses you do.
Right.
So go out and do it. I believe you better be on video like this every single day. If you want to be the information knowledge broker in your market, the people the person that people respect and they go to learn about what the hell is happening in your market, you better be on video every single day. And that video needs to be compounded on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, lives, recorded videos, repurposed, put out there. You better be the knowledge broker telling people what's happening. I think video is the key. It's been the key for, I think the last 2 years. The good news is nobody really does it. Everybody thinks they suck on video. Everybody hates video. It's a muscle. Everybody's bad when they do their first video. You just get better with time. And here's the thing, we're harder on ourselves than what most people are. Just give good, solid content. And then, by the way, at the end of every video, have a call to action. Tell people what to do next. They need to be led. Hey, if you like this video and you want to learn more about the market, do this. Send me a direct message. You got to tell them what to do next, or else they do nothing and they binge watch. But while I was in Connecticut, I had 2 one-on-one Zooms, people scheduled in my calendar from YouTube. Hey, we're moving there. We saw your videos. And they used the word, I binge watched. I watched 10 of your videos. They're not interviewing any other agent.
That's right.
And by the way, there's 1,000 people doing YouTube videos in DFW. 1,000 who are doing YouTube. They picked me. You know why? Because I liked your personality.
Yep. Just
because somebody's a monster on YouTube in your market doesn't mean people like them. And it doesn't mean they might have 20,000 followers. I've got 1,500. But my 1,500 look at me differently. Like, this dude knows the market. He's an expert. He's just not doing all this other flash stuff. He's an expert in real estate. And that's who I attract. I'm not the funny guy on video. I'm not doing dances on TikTok. You know what I am? I'm the most educated person about the market, probably the highest skilled real estate agent. If you want to find the home of your dreams, negotiate the best deal, that's what I portray out there. And if you're a seller, nobody knows marketing better than me, period.
Love that.
That's how I track, and that's what I put out in my videos. I'm not doing TikTok videos. I'm not dancing around like a moron. That's not me.
It's not you. You're attracting your people, and it's just being you, being authentic. And what it does is it builds trust. And no matter what happens in the real estate space, it'll always come down to a decision of trust. And what are you doing, creating content to where you're building that relationship and, building that level of trust. And, if they're consuming and they come to you, they're already ready to go, right? They're going to, they're going to follow your lead. And it's so powerful to have that mix. One other maybe cash flow source right now that you think, hey, you need to be doing this as well.
I do believe in geographical farming, and I've never done it in my real estate career up until about 18 months ago. When I started doing it in the neighborhood I live in, I made over 6 figures just from my neighborhood. So I spent $15,000. I made like 110 in 1 year doing it. It took consistency. So everyone on my team is required to pick a geographical farm. And what I taught them to do was something that was taught to me is I was like, I do a monthly market update and video for my neighborhood, all video. So I send out a postcard every single month, item of value with a QR code that says, hey, 180 of your neighbors have already subscribed to our monthly Miramonte market update. Scan here to subscribe. So I use social proof. There's 180 people who have registered for my videos every month. So 180 of my neighbors I speak to. So when I go to the pool with my kids, I swear to God, it's the most uncomfortable thing. But I see people staring at us.
Yeah.
And they walk up like, hey, man, I get your market update. And they shake my hand and say, thank you. I love it. The information is great. Yeah, so I've now become the knowledge broker, the go-to. So then I turned it into fun. I have kids. So how do I take that and make it fun? End of the school year, I brought in an ice cream truck and we gave out hundreds of ice creams on the last day of school. I'm not even there for Christmas, but I put a Santa Claus is Coming to Miramonte tour together while I was in Connecticut. I had a Santa Claus come in, drive on the back of one of the neighbors' trucks. It was all sponsored by me. I promoted it. He drove through. We stopped at 7 different locations in the neighborhood for people to take photographs. Dude, they all tagged me in it. They all thanked me for it, and they loved it. So now I've expanded. To me, those people call me, and they're not interviewing other people. I'm the neighborhood expert. I'm more than just a realtor. I'm also your neighbor. And it's long term, but if you want to get the ups and downs out of your business, do something like a open house strategy tied with a neighborhood farming strategy, which is long-term. I think everybody right now, you better get really good at expired listings. I've got 3 appointments when I get back on Monday, all expired. And here's the crazy shit. I didn't call any of them. I built out an automation that slide dial, voicemail drops them, text messages them, and emails them. My very first email to them is a bomb video of me saying, hey, listen, I know your phone is blowing up with people since your home came off the market. I didn't want to be like all the other realtors and bombard your cell phone. Listen, I got 2 simple questions for you. And I put them in the bomb video. And dude, people are like, hey, I watched your video. We're thinking about selling. You did it different. Now, some people say, F you, you're stuck. Cool. All right,
Cool.
You're mad at the world. I understand.
Yeah.
I got a $4 million listing appointment and a $2.6 million listing appointment when I get back on Monday. All expired. I did not cold call any of them.
Yeah, I love that.
They just said, dude, you did it differently.
Yeah.
And if you do differently, I'm not judging you against all other real estate agents. I'd love to hear what you have to say about my house and how you would market it to get it sold. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. Absolute gold, brother. Well, I appreciate you, man. I know you're in paradise and a little downtime and getting to unwind here for a few days. So I appreciate you jumping in, adding a ton of value as always. And you guys listening in, make sure you hit Alex up. I say this, told you this many times. I mean, there's nobody better on the planet than Alex. He's most skilled, articulate, knowledged agent that you'll ever come across. And so if you're not following or paying attention to Alex, you're doing yourself a disservice. So get plugged in, get following him everywhere. And then if you guys haven't subscribed to the podcast, you can catch coachcodepodcast.com and subscribe and keep dropping value like this to you guys every day. Brother, I appreciate you, man. You guys have fun. And
appreciate you.
Tell Cuz I said hello and give Sarah a big hug and kiss.
Will do, man. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, brother. See you.
Take care.
Bye.